Guys, for your plans and designs, get an architect. Sa Arkitekto Sigurado.
Good day, future architects. I am Architect Gerald C. Arroyo, a UAP PIA member, a licensed and registered architect, and currently teaching at the University of Science and Technology, Southern Philippines, Cagayan de Oro City Campus. Today, we are going to talk about reinforced concrete columns and footing. But before that, please like and subscribe and click the ring bell. Columns or poste. A rigid, relatively slender structural member designed primarily to support axial, compressive load applied at the member ends. The main purpose of a column is to support a beam or girder, floor, or roof, and also arc. Most columns are freestanding, while some are integrated. So ibig sabihin, yung mga poste natin sa bahay or sa building that carries the load of our beam or girder, or our floors and roof. May mga columns that are freestanding or kaya nilang tumayo mag-isa. And then there are some columns that are integrated with another columns or with walls that are also load bearings. There are type of columns. Column is classified according to the type of reinforcement used. There are tied columns, spiral column, composite columns, combined columns, and lally columns. A tied columns has reinforcement consisting of vertical or longitudinal bars held in the position by lateral reinforcement called lateral ties. In this figure, makikita natin that these are actually the vertical bars or longitudinal bars na nabench sa ilalim. And ito namang paikot, mga bars na to, or rebars, are actually the lateral ties. A column is always attached to a column footing. A column footing are substructure elements of a foundation. A column could be the superstructure or the substructure of a foundation. Let us classify reinforced concrete columns. There are two types of reinforced columns. There are short columns and long columns. The important so that we could know what type or classification of this column is to determine the slenderness or stiffness ratio of a column. A short column is when unsupported height of a column is not greater than 10 times the shortest lateral dimension of a cross-section. In other words, height is equals to not greater than 10 times b. For example, if we have a 3,800 millimeter height column, which is our height, with a dimension of 400 millimeters by 600 millimeters, the shortest lateral dimension of this cross-section is 400 millimeters. So, 3,800 millimeters, which is our actual height of the column, should be equals to not greater than 10 times 400 millimeters, or 3,800 millimeters is not greater than 4,000 millimeters. This is considered as a short column or medyo mataba na column. A long column is when unsupported height of a column is more than 10 times the shortest lateral dimension of a cross-section. So, height is not greater than 10 times b. For example, we have a 3,800 millimeter height column, or 3.8, with a dimension of 200 by 300. The shortest lateral dimension of the cross-section is 200 mm, meaning the height of the 3,800 millimeter is equals to greater than 10 times the shortest lateral dimension, which is the 200 mm. So, the total height, which is 3,800, is equals to greater than 2,000 millimeters. So, this is considered as a long column. The minimum concrete covering of a column and a footing. Ito yung parang concrete covering before ma-expose yung mga rebars natin. So sa column there is a minimum and then sa footing meron din. For our column, the minimum covering should be 45 millimeters from the center of the vertical bars. For our footing, the minimum concrete cover should be 75 millimeters both sides. Ano nga ba ang procedure how to construct a footing and columns? First is excavation by means of heavy equipment like backhoe. So yung depth ng ating columns and foundation or yung columns natin and footing are based on the structural designs of our structural engineers. So after ma-identify na natin yung depth ng ating foundation, lalagyan na natin to ng soil poisoning o lason. After, ilalatag na natin yung ating crushed gravel. Yung thickness ng ating crushed gravel should be 100 mm thick. The next procedure is ilalagay na natin yung concrete spacer natin. Yung purpose ng ating concrete spacer is that para yung ating bottom bars would not directly dun sa ating soil para iwas kalawang. Yung ating bottom bars are actually prefabricated na. So assembled na siya. Meron na rin itong tie wires. And yung distance ng each bottom bars are based on the structural design of our footing. The next procedure is ilalagay na natin yung ating horizontal bars and our ties. So ayan na, ilalagay na natin yung ating rebars ng ating columns which are the horizontal and our ties. Na meron na rin itong tie wire. After nyan, ready na natin buhusan ng ating footing. Yung thickness ng concrete natin sa footing is based pa rin doon sa actual design ng ating structural engineer. So bubuhusan na natin yung ating footing. Ready na tayo para ilagay yung ating column formworks or parang hulma. Yung formworks natin are made of plywood, ordinary plywood, marine plywood, or phenolic boards. Recyclable naman ito. Pwede pa rin natin ito gamitin sa other columns. Tapos nilalagyan ito ng yokes para mag-support dun sa column forms. After a few days, tapos nabuhusan na natin yung concrete, after a few days, pwede na natin tanggalin yung ating formworks. Yung mga excessive bars na yan are called dowels. Dito natin ikakabit yung other layer ng ating vertical bars. After ma-remove na natin yung ating formworks, ready na siya para ibalik natin yung ating excavated soil. So yan na yung ating footing and a part of our column. Different types of foundation footing. The isolated footing, the wall footing, the cantilever footing, the grade footing, the mat foundation, and the combined footing. A isolated footing is a single spread footing supporting a freestanding column or pier. Ito yung the usual natin ginagamit na klase of footing, the isolated footing. A wall footing naman are actually footing sa wall. It is a continuous strip of concrete that serves as spread of weight of load-bearing walls across the area of the soil. Usually, ang nakalibing na hollow blocks are two layers. So, yung two layers na yan are under grid or ilalim ng soil. A cantilever footing is a reinforced concrete footing connected by a tie beam, ito yung tie beam, to another footing in order to balance a symmetrical imposed load.